So namaste, welcome to Satsang this evening. Somebody's bedtime already. And welcome to you online. So just to reiterate the same thing I end up saying every time, but that is the purpose of Satsang. The reason and the function of Satsang is to come to realize on a deep level the essential nature of our being, the essential, what is permanent about us and stable, and then to come to live as that in a very effortless way. And Satsang is just for this, that is the direct experience of our truest self, our most permanent self, and for the seeing through any ideas and illusions about ourselves that actually are not true, but that we might still be experiencing in our lives, as our lives actually. So to come to see what we are is a recognition of seeing. And then the other side of that is to begin to hold what we've seen as our actual essential nature up against what our thoughts are telling us about ourselves and other beings. So our old ways of thinking will still continue even after a recognition of what we actually are. And those that persist are going to have to be examined against what we've seen in our inquiry, our self-inquiry, our meditation. And that pretty much is every thought that we could have as a human being. We don't have to sift through every single thought. Most of them will fall away over time as we keep seeing and seeing and seeing. Some may be slightly more problematic and hang around a bit longer. Some. I never had that experience ever. And those may take some inquiry, some questioning into to find out if they're really true, and therefore let them leave. Because just because we've seen what we are actually, to whatever degree, even if I've just experienced a little silence in meditation, a little peace, a little quietness, then we've had some level of seeing that there is something other than our usual way of perceiving ourselves as a separate human being, moving through life, moving through this journey until the body ends, and then we seem to end with it. So right before you feel, even before you feel you've had a deep and profound seeing, you'll begin to notice these old ways of thinking coming to the surface, to really show themselves that this way of thinking is no longer in alignment with what we've seen ourselves to be. So the moment we have some kind of deep silence, we recognize a deep silence or a stillness in meditation, or some kind of, there's this vast consciousness, it's going to become clearer by contrast what old ways of thinking we're holding on to, that's holding our being back. And usually that takes the form of some fear, some unworthiness, and usually some anger. And they're all kind of interconnected. And when I was looking at what I wanted to say tonight, I read this question here that's being sent in, which fits perfectly with what I wanted to say. So I'm going to go ahead and just, if I can remember the passcode to my iPad, there we go. Read this question because it's right. Totally a good example of where I think everyone will be able to relate to this question and this fear that's coming up. So question says, hi Helen, first of all, thank you for your teachings, which embodies simplicity, directness, and for the given opportunity to ask you a question. My question is about social anxiety. I just recently realized that I have a very high level of social anxiety. There is a continuous sense of doom or anxiety in the heart area. And this becomes debilitating to the point of not wanting to see or talk to people, even my family and friends, not being able to work and interact properly, and having feelings of extreme tensions in my head, mainly in most social circumstances. Like even going to the supermarket, my heart rates go up and I lose the sense of common sense, and I become self-conscious, like the whole thing, images, thoughts, feelings. I would like to know how to, on a day-to-day, live with that in the silence, which is so helpful to me. But at the same time, even if silence is clear, the feelings keep pounding and I get drained from it and lose touch with being. Sorry for the long explanation, with love. So this question just really struck me as very useful as a way to talk about and to answer, that it would bring a deeper understanding, hopefully, because to a certain extent we've all experienced some kind of anxiety, nerves in a social situation, I think, and sometimes that fear becomes quite extreme. So the reason that you're recognizing this now, you said, I've just recently recognized, is because you're seeing the silence, you said here. Even the silence in meditation is there, it's obvious. There's some kind of richer connection with it. And that's great. But the thing that's going to happen after that is a desire is going to be born to live in that silence permanently, as that silence. And to do that, we're going to have to examine everything that doesn't fit with our old paradigm of being a separate being. It's going to come to the surface, as I'm sure you've experienced in your own life, everything coming up that you that disagrees with what you're seeing. So it's coming up now, you're conscious of it now, because your realization is deepening, because this no longer fits. It's kind of standing out. It's been there perhaps our entire life, but now it's really, really out of place with who we've seen ourselves to be. That there's this deep silence or awareness where there is no fear, there's nothing going on, there's just this quietness. And then I go back to my old ideas about myself as some kind of separate being in a room surrounded by other beings, and fear arises. So the best way to start to deal with this is really to begin to recognize that this is seemingly getting worse because your realization is deepening. It's not something that we've done wrong. These things are going to come to the surface because who we know ourselves to be is shifting. As I said before, we've lived with this for our entire life, perhaps, and only now is it becoming really, really unbearable, too much to deal with in our everyday life. So starting with the attitude that this is coming up to be released, it's terrible, it feels awful, I don't like it, but I can see that it's a sign of my awakening progressing, that I this no longer fits inside my being, this fear, and it's coming up to be examined. And then if you can start from that compassionate attitude, it's going to be much easier to work with. So looking at this fear, it's fear of being around other beings, isn't it? This kind of social anxiety. I'm fine when I'm on my own, if I sit at home on my own, peaceful. When I'm in any social situation, as you said here, even going to the supermarket, there's this anxiety that comes up. And you mentioned, I think, a sense of doom, a sense of it around the heart area in particular. So let's look at what this is exactly. Why are we scared of other beings? What is that about? Scared of being around other beings is perhaps better said. Why can I be really deep and peaceful in my own away, in my own space, and really begin to recognize deeper what I am and allow that to penetrate deeper and deeper, that I've not ever been a separate being and that there isn't anything about me to fix. And then I get into a social situation and all of that seems to be lost. Everything I've just seen seems to disappear. Suddenly I'm adrift, and this not so common sense as completely absent. We seem to have lost that wisdom in that moment. And whatever it is that's going on for you as you're listening, it might not be social anxiety, but it'll be some form of fear or unworthiness or anger, something like that going on. So probably some combination of all of those. So each one of us as a separate being has this idea that we are somehow less than we're supposed to be. Somehow we are not good enough inherently, that we, at some point, we broke away from the self, our separate self was created, and that due to that fact, we're somehow inadequate in some deep way. All of us have that in our being completely. So when we're around other beings, we feel this anxiety and this, for me, it was very similar, very heavy feeling right here, that somebody's going to find me out. I'm not who I need to be. I'm pretending, I'm putting on a show, I'm pretending to be someone that I'm not really. For me, it was, pretending to be confident and happy when inside it really wasn't that way at all. This feeling of doom that somebody at some point, can't avoid people forever, successfully at least can't. At some point, somebody's going to find me out, that I'm pretending, or some variation along that theme. And we all have that, don't we? It's a basic human thing that runs throughout our entire existence. So this fear is piggybacking off this belief that there are other beings there outside of us to judge us, to evaluate us. So looking at this core idea, the fear comes from the unworthiness. I'm not good enough. I'm not adequate. I'm not who I need to be. And therefore, I can only manage to pretend for so long, and eventually somebody's going to find that out. At some point I'll be busted, and everybody will leave me. And it sounds almost ridiculous to say out loud, but some part of us really buys into that, believes that inside, somewhere deep in the core of our being, our egoic sense of self. So some questioning, bringing this into your satsang now, that this is happening for a reason, this is coming up for a reason, this is so intense for you right now, so that you can't ignore it and you have to resolve it. You have to begin to move beyond it. Imagine sitting in a room with beings and absolutely knowing that you are who you're supposed to be. You are the best version of you that you could possibly be in this moment. Can you imagine having that feeling? Not in an arrogant way, but knowing that who you are is enough, more than enough. And maybe even one step further, that who you are is that divine source, cleverly disguised as a human being, feeling inadequate. But so questioning this worthiness, this inadequacy, would be what I would suggest here for this. Because if you come to recognize that you are already whole, that you're not a work in progress and never have been, never. Although we have thought that and we have believed that. And our life has reflected that back to us in experiences and thoughts, and other people perhaps telling us that we're not who we need to be. Or perhaps more accurately, we're not who they want us to be, Only way out of this is the deep self-recognition. This silence that I access, this awareness, this beingness, consciousness, whatever we want to call it, the self, infinite being. Is it actually unworthy? Is it going to ever be found out as a fraud or a fake or a pretender, whatever it is that our mind is telling us? And what do we want to live as? Do we want to live as this human being who feels flawed and inadequate? Or are we going to step into our true identity, which is that which has always been absolutely perfect? And I'm not talking about perfection, mind's image of perfection. This is what I look like when I'm perfect, when I can glow in the dark and all that stuff and levitate. But the perfection of right now, I am love showing up as a human being. I am consciousness appearing as this form. And there's no mistakes in that. There's no mistake in consciousness. There's no error in the self. There never was any separation from which we could be flawed in the first place. So deep and rich investigation of the root of this. Looking at the unworthiness first, and then maybe if you feel a pull to question if there are actually any other beings. For me, this didn't go away completely until I'd really come to see there aren't actually any other beings to be around. I'm never in a social situation, in a room with all of you. I'm never in a social situation because there's just me. That has to kind of give you a little confidence then, right? That you're not going to be judged. So I'd suggest really looking at this unworthiness first. What if it's utterly untrue that you've ever been less than, ever, What if that is the original, apart from the first lie that we separated off from the self? What if the next lie is that somehow we fell from grace? If we never left grace, then how can we be less than? Where did we fall? Did we even fall at all? And a deep and rich questioning is going to bring this to the forefront, this understanding that all that ever is about me is this rich wholeness of being, this completion, not arrogance, just a sense that I am as I always was. Nothing's changed, actually, despite what my mind has told me for many eons in many different bodies, actually. Because first of all, this lie that you are less than has been so believed. And then it keeps showing up in our life because we're not really a separate being. We are the infinite self. Any idea that we're holding on to is going to show up in a very real way for us as the infinite reality, the infinite being, the self. It's got all the power of the universe behind this idea to experience it in a very real, three-dimensional, real-time way as my life. What if it's not true? I always like to get to the root of something, the fastest way out of suffering. And this is the original lie, isn't it? That somehow we're less than whole, perfect. And that we have to find a way back to our original state, original wholeness. So this is coming up now because you've seen that part of yourself that isn't ever going to be able to feel unworthy. It doesn't even make sense to the silence, does it? Unworthiness. There's no place in the self for, in the divine love that you really are, for this unworthiness. There's just this that's showing up as you. So as that feeling of wholeness begins to permeate your being, and your body and mind begin to reflect that more, then of course you're going to be much more at ease in any situation. It's not really those other beings that are making us feel anxious anyway, although it seems that way. Even if they are judging and evaluating us and saying things we'd rather them not say. Ooh, that was hard work. It's only a reflection of our own sense of low self-esteem. So as you begin to radiate this, I am enough. I am actually more than enough. That I love truth that much that I don't want to lie about myself anymore, actually. I don't want to do that. I could go on forever subscribing to these ideas of the mind, but we know where that goes. We've been down that road many times. It's a cul-de-sac, isn't it? You're backed into a corner. So less trying to fix ourselves and more identification with that real self that isn't a work in progress. More attention on that, less attention on this idea that we need to fix ourselves or somehow make up for some past sins or something like that. It's hard to keep your attention on the self for any length of time without recognizing that all of our ideas about ourselves are completely untrue. And only all of them, you know. Absolutely, this question touched my heart because it was very similar to what I was going through. And having to sit in front of a group of beings, it was very heightened. I had to come to resolve this. What is this actually about? You know, otherwise I'd be doing satsang and I'd be standing behind a screen or something like. What happens then when you feel whole? What happens when you recognize what your mind is saying about you is utterly false? What does that feel like? You can road test it right now. What if there's never been anything wrong with you, actually? And how would that change your life moving forward when you walk into the supermarket? You know, when you walk into work, when you take your kids out, when you're in a satsang, how would that change everything for you? How would you feel? How would you move? What would you say? You can't really help but feel that way and want to kind of tell everyone else too that they're also enough. You know, they're also more than adequate. Everyone is scrambling to feel worthy. And I hope you have a taste of it right now, that there is this other way to be where you're completely at ease with your life, with other beings, with everything, you know. That's why sometimes it's a real mixed bag to be around an awakened being, because they love you completely and know that you're adequate. And that feels good. But then in that high energy, everything's going to come up. You know, I came to satsang to kind of bliss out, and now I'm feeling really anxious and insecure, and I want to run out of the chair, you know. I'm sure you've never felt like that. So investigating this, the root of it. What's the first lie you've told yourself? Even now, maybe there's lies going on. You know, if you don't like the word lie, we can say untruth or assumption, belief. There's a difference between me and you. All of that. And questioning that with a real conviction. I really want to know that this isn't true. I want to know with a real powerful conviction, so much so that it's just oozing out of my being all the time, effortlessly. And that anyone else that comes into contact with me has to kind of feel that they're also more than enough. So comparing what you've seen in your meditation to what your mind is telling you, which one feels better? You're less than, or you're absolutely fine as you are, and just choosing, questioning the belief if you need to until it falls away, until you feel at ease around other beings. We don't feel any different if you're sat in a room full of beings or you're sat on your own in deep meditation at home. That's where you want to stay with the question until you feel that way. Is there really anything wrong with me, actually? Something like that. Am I really actually unworthy, not good enough? Whichever form the question takes that resonates for you. So I have 2 other questions here, but if there are any questions online or here in the room, we'll see how many we get. I may read some more if we have time. So if anybody would like to ask a question or share. Okay, we'll go with Barbara. Oh, wow. Okay, loads of hands. Okay. When you're ready, Barbara.
Can you hear me?
I can. We can.
It's so lovely to see you.
Are you in your pajamas? Are you in your pajamas?
I am, because I'm a bit, actually, it's later here and I'm a bit poorly. I've been poorly for about 10 days and I'm not seemingly getting any better yet, but still. If I start coughing, I'll have to mute myself and I'm out of it because it won't stop.
Can I just ask for no more hands up now online? Thank you. I'll take the questions that are there, the hands that are there. Thank you. Sorry, Barbara, go ahead.
After quite a traumatic kind of upset in the relationship that I'm in a couple of weeks ago, I did a lot of, sitting and seriously looking. This is really over for me now, I need to look. And felt, since then, it's been very, very clear that the mind is something which is only arising within the awareness. It's not here on its own ever. It's not a separate thing. It's for the first time quite continually clear that is not the case. And sort of chopping away with that was what I would call my core terrible feeling of not wanted, not loved. Mm-hmm. Kind of a black depression that came with it that pulled me. I seem to always get lost in it, in illusion, and not be able to really see what it was, just like a big black pain. So that it seemed as if that was finally seen. And I find myself having a positionality in the manifest about something that's, about the state of the world.
The state of the world, did you say?
Yes.
Okay.
And so there's been there's some question in me about whether that is something which is in line with the path or not. Like, say that it's been seen that the mind only arises within awareness. Mm-hmm. But still this positionality is there. And for the first time, I find that I'm actually speaking out.
Just tell me what that is. What is it about the world that the thoughts are saying?
Oh, it's about the COVID thing, the vaccination thing.
Okay. So do you want to pay attention to that or not?
I would say I've probably been paying attention to it since it began.
But do you want to? Do you want to?
I want to. Oh no, that's a good question, isn't it?
Because, and the reason I ask is because, like you said, sometimes attention just goes to some thought anyway, doesn't it? And we don't seem to have a choice in that moment. As you said, you seem to forget what you'd just seen, you know, and then suddenly attention goes to this particular thought or thoughts. But if I ask you that question, do you want to pay attention to it? Probably there's a yes and a no going on in answer to that in all of us, right? So no, I really don't want to listen to that. I'd rather stay in the silence. But also a yes, actually this is important. I do, some part of us, and I do need to listen to this. This is,
that's right, exactly. Yeah. Nail on the head.
So recognizing that yes and a no happens. Something wants to pay attention, something doesn't. Just have a look inside and see if you are resisting one of those. Okay. There's probably an idea inside that I shouldn't be paying attention to this by now. You know, I shouldn't be listening to these thoughts anymore, or something like that, which is in resistance to the yes. Yes, I want to listen.
Yes, I think there's a question about whether all things manifest and all thoughts and all memories and all ideas about the future have got to be turned away from, whatever they may be, and that you're only going to remain kind of the awareness, or whether that's something that it kind of happens and then it's all right to embody that in terms of positionality. And I was thinking about the last bit of the Bhagavad Gita, you know, that even though it had been seen that none of this is true, still the battle had to go on. He had to make a decision about the karmic level of it, which forget if there isn't any, if there aren't any beliefs left for it. I don't know. I don't know.
Can I just kind of bring it back a bit simpler? Because you're making an awful lot of hard work for yourself here. Not that I've ever done that. The only thing you need to do is to examine the thoughts that bring some strong emotion, because they're the ones that we're still believing on some level. So if these particular thoughts are bringing up some emotion, then it's good to look at them, what that is, what that's about, as we were just talking about with the question I was reading. If they're just thoughts and they don't seem to have any, they might be there, but they don't seem to have any visceral response in the body, you can probably just turn away from them if you want to. It's not your job to kind of sift and sort through everything in the mind. Again, if we look at the silence, it's not doing that at all, is it? It's just letting the mind be whatever it is in that moment, taking whatever shape it takes. Good thoughts, ugly thoughts, bad thoughts, you know, happy thoughts, excited thoughts, judgmental thoughts, all of that. It's just allowed by the silence of our being. And maybe there's just a little sense of having to do something here to get rid of all of this.
I'll have to listen again later. So the stuff coming into the...
Just rest as the silence as much as you can. And then when it's suggested to you that there's something you have to do, examine that and see if that's true. Is that true for the silence? Do I have to really clear out my mind, or do I have to sort out the thought stream or anything like that? Whatever job is suggested to you. So I'm not signing up for that, because I know where that goes.
Just ask one quick thing, which would be that there's about an absence of sort of being really bothered about what anybody thinks about what I think. which is a new thing for me. It's sort of the first time that I thought, right, you know, well, whatever. I'm just going to write what I'm going to write, and there's nobody else out there really. So
Yeah,
it feels very strange.
it's really nice but strange, isn't it? I really don't care what anyone else thinks about me, because what anyone else thinks about me is only what they think about me. It's nothing to do with me. I can't control what you think about me. I can try to be a nicer person, so, you know, with the hope that you might like me more, have better thoughts about me, but I can't control that, can I?
Yeah.
Everybody else has got this idea about us, just as we probably have an idea about them until we don't. And there's nothing you can do about your thoughts about me or my thoughts about you. It's such a relief, isn't it, when you just don't really care anymore in that same way. It's not that you go around upsetting everyone, but you recognize what they think about you is entirely in their own head, and you've got no control over that. Stay as the silence.
It's like it oughtn't perhaps to be like that on some level. Anyway, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Good to talk to you.
I will re-listen and profit in you too.
Yeah.
Love you so much. It's been
Love you too.
a long time. God bless and thank you.
Thank you. So we have a lot of hands up here online. Is there anyone that wants to? We'll take Steve, and then we'll come to you, Elliot, afterwards, after Steve. I'll try to alternate.
Better get on first. It might be about 9 o'clock.
We only have this room till 9 o'clock, so we're going to have to stop at some point.
I wasn't going to share all this. I wasn't even going to speak. I'm thinking, no, what should I say today? But, as you were sharing, as you were talking about, I responded to that last, and that they're going to find. He said you feel that eventually they're going to find out how fake or whatever it is. You know what I mean? And that sort of started resonating with me, because it, as you know, I share. I'm like a resentment looking for a cause. I can pick them up.
That was me. I'm just this angry vibration looking for something to be angry about.
Basically,
Yeah.
Definitely. And it's just occurred to me that when somebody really winds me up or whatever, and I get angry or resentful, I'm angry because it's like I've blown my cover here. They're going to say that I'm angry. They're going to, yeah. You got to say.
Because I'm pretending to be someone who I think they're going to like. And if some strong emotion comes up, I might not be able to keep pretending. They might see the real me, you know.
I'm so frightened of that if I blow, because other things can happen in your law, you know what I mean? So there's that there.
But who, you know, all this pretending to be someone that people will like and love is really coming from this idea of who I think I am. Who I think I am then dictates who I try to be in a circumstance. And who I think I am is a total work of fiction. I might not actually know myself at all. I mean, on the spiritual level, I might not know that I'm not a separate being, but on an actual human being level, I might think I am this way. And if I asked everyone, you know, how would you describe me? They might tell me completely different. My idea about myself that I'm using to base the fact that I'm not good enough might be a total work of fiction, actually. So far removed from how you actually are.
I'm very aware of what I really am. That's like, I know I'm not the mind. And the
As in the silence, you mean, like?
The self, the truth. Yeah, I know what's going on there. Well, I know that I don't know, if you like, you know what I mean? But
you're not a someone.
I'm not a someone, yeah. But there's a someone causing some bother here. And it's like... there
seems to be a someone causing...
It seems to be, yeah, but it's very, very solid. It does cause a lot of mess for me. You know, I've shared to you over years, but... And I thought a lot of the things that I thought I'd dealt with. I'm thinking I've dealt with that now, Steve. So just forget about that, forget about that, forget about that. And then I was listening to somebody today, and you know, it's a bit of it's going in with psychotherapy and this, that, and the other. And I thought, you know, sorry. I thought, well,
We'll have to edit that one out. Hopefully you didn't hear that
no,
nice word online.
I didn't say it fully, did I?
It's okay.
My interpretation of waking up was wake, finally, no problems done with.
That's true. And
go on.
You might also have to work the bugs out of your humanity based on who you thought you were.
Bugs.
Yeah.
Well, the bugs.
You know, those little bits where our personality doesn't flow as well as we'd like it to. Which you've been doing, you know, you've been looking at that. But
sometimes I wonder if listen to this guy, how deep have I gone with it? How really deep? I'm just sort of saying, that's not me. I'm really too angry or whatever it is I'm using at the time. And it don't go into this. It might move it. It might feel like, oh, that's it. It makes sense. That
it has to eventually, for me, the recognition that I wasn't at all what I thought I was and had never been. I didn't want to accept that at first because it meant really questioning everything I thought about myself, everything I thought I was and was like and wasn't like and needed to be, and all of that began to be called into question with that. So we don't necessarily, okay, let me self-inquire once, oh, there's no separate being, poof, I'm enlightened. You know, it's more like, wow, that's a shock. And then something turns away from the fact that there isn't a separate being for quite some time.
Yeah.
And then eventually we come back, all right, I really want to see that again. I really want to look at that again. So this is just that beginning to really deepen. Have I, and not in a judgmental way, like mind would say, have I taken this deep enough? Let me see, you know, so.
It's more, I've done that, Steve, and I've avoided, look, I've sort of skipped, I can tell you all about past my early memories, you know, this, that. And I tell you about the fear, the anxiety, the anger were there at 3-4 year old. It was there raging, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
because these ideas,
I haven't sat in it, like maybe let's have you feel this, Steve, really feel it, you know what I mean? I've seen that. I know about it here.
Yeah.
Doesn't bother me anymore, but
yeah.
the anger is still there. I don't know where it came from. Don't really matter.
It's just ideas that we're brought into this lifetime based on a succession of imaginary lifetimes of separate being as a separate being.
But what do you really do with anger?
Look at the root of that. What does anger say? What does it say?
Can't get what I want.
I can't get what I want. What I want is to be happy, to be safe, to be loved, to be accepted. We could all add things onto that list, couldn't we?
Be angry.
But I just can't, which is to be peaceful. What I do want is to be peaceful, you know, if we look at what we want. So this idea, I can't get what I want, and we've experienced this before in other bodies, it keeps playing out as our life. I want to be happy, I want to be free, I want to be safe, and I can't seem to get that. So I'm angry. So just examining that core idea inside. Is that true for the self, the silence?
No.
So you say that, and that's great. But the question is more important than the answer. Yes. The answer that I would accept, and I did exactly the same thing. I knew it here completely, but I was still living this other life, let's just say, you know, my spiritual life in my meditation, and then the rest of my life was fearful, angry, and unworthy, you know, in varying degrees. So staying with that question until your experience is telling you otherwise. You know, letting that question be most important thing in your life. Not stopping at the mind's answer. There's nothing wrong with mind, of course, but it's not going to give you experiential peace that stays.
It's not going to give you
experiential peace. It'll give you an answer up here that makes you feel better for a few minutes. Yeah. Yes, I am good enough. And that's a great thought. It feels better than I'm not good enough. But you're going to have to go back again into the old, you know, or I can't get what I want. Well, yes, you can. You're the self.
But doing it, realizing where it's coming from and going into that as if I'm okay, we're here again now. Okay. and really feeling it,
Yeah.
and then asking a question on it. But to me, that sounds like a bit like therapy.
Nope. Therapy.
And it's what I've been avoiding. Sometimes I've
Uh-huh.
avoided like the plague. I've got to go back into therapy, you know what I mean?
Well, therapy is a process, at least as far as I understand it, of examining certain thoughts we may have and replacing them with making room for better thoughts, looking at our stories. The question is going to take you beyond those stories, those thoughts altogether, into the deep silence of the being. Again, whatever we're ready for, therapy is great for some beings that are not ready for this deep change of identity. But now where you are, only that is going to satisfy you.
Definitely, yeah.
So does that give you a kind of way forward?
Yeah, yes. Yeah. Last week you told me to get to. I can't do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seemed to shift a little bit in here. It seemed like a valid question, if you like, without an answer.
Something gets excited with a question. The question is more important than any answer you could ever have. Whatever answer you get, whether it's a thought or an emotion or an aha moment, stay with the question until your life looks like you want it to look like. How long? How long are you willing to stick at something that's going to make you eternally happy, peaceful, abundant, joyful, loving, compassionate?
As long as I need.
As long as you need. That attitude makes it much quicker. Just a simple recognition, I mustn't have taken this deep enough because I'm still suffering. Not in a judgy way, just that's just the fact, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good, lovely. Okay, Elliot, when you're ready.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can, yep.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to just go there. So it's just you on the screen. Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, it's my first time being on one of your Satsangs. I've watched a lot of your videos. Yeah, so I guess I have like 10 questions I could ask you, but and I originally came on, like the reason I wanted to talk originally was to see, because I recently watched your video about contemplations, and I can see very clearly the needs in my life for that, the areas in which I'm and also excuse like if my terminology is weird. I have spent a lot of time with another Advaita teacher, so like the way I describe things is very much
absolutely fine. Absolutely.
Okay, so like I can see areas in which I'm like playing the victim, when in reality, it's all out of my interest. I can see that it's all in my. It's not. I'm not a victim. Yeah. So that was originally the thing, is if you could take me through a contemplation, but then really the question that came up was that I can see that the areas, I can see that I'm resisting the return to what I truly am. That comes up in the form of the fear of dying, because I feel that this, exactly what you said, this shift in identity, I don't know, it brings up a lot of fear. So yeah, I'd love to hear what you have to say about any of that. I'm sorry if it was all over the place.
No, it's good. Very, very similar for me. The deeper this realization had gone, the more fear came up, because some part of my being was convinced that something was going to have to end. To live as this deep and rich understanding that was getting clearer, that I'm not at all, as we were just saying, what I thought about myself isn't true, that I am infinite and formless and all of that. The egoic sense of self or mind then begins to really fear an ending because of that. Okay, this old version of me I thought was true. Now I'm seeing this new version of me is what's real. And our mind works in duality. It works in pairs of opposites, as I'm sure you've seen, hot and cold, and rich and poor, good and bad, and worthy, unworthy. And it does it with this part of realization too. It says self or ego. Which one is it going to be? I have to pick one. And of course, we want to pick the self because that feels so much more amazing. But that brings up fear then, this idea that the old sense of self is going to have to go or be destroyed or whatever it is. This fear of death, fear of an ending. Even before the fear of the body ending is the fear of me ending as a separate being. You're going to get a very visceral sense of that. So addressing this then is easier when you kind of see that it's only mind that wants to choose one or the other. So right now, I know I'm infinite and formless and everywhere. And I'm also enjoying being this individual and unique being that's talking to you right now. I don't have to pick one or the other. That which makes me unique is still here and is actually flourishing because of this deeper realization. Can you see the sense that you're going to have to lose something in this? Something's going to have to end.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's what it's all about. I mean, what
if that's not true? What if it's more like an upgrade? Okay, there's this finite, limited version of me that I know very well. And then I'm going to get this upgrade, like Helen 2.0 or something, to the infinite version of me too. I'm going to get to know that also. So the only thing that dies then is my ability to say that this is all I am. I am this too, but I'm also so much more. So as we say in Yorkshire, or maybe England, you get to have your cake and eat it. I get to keep all the bits I like about my individuality, not separate, but individual. Mind is very black and white. It sees two things, self and ego, or separate self and formlessness. And it says, which one? I've got to pick one out of these two options. That's what it does, doesn't it? It's got to pick one of the two options. But the separate self is appearing inside the greater self. And the greater self has never once said, okay, you're going to have to go away now, mind. It's just not doing that. So fact, refuse to choose, refuse to choose is my mantra.
I mean, and even more, well, it's well, what came up is that like the mind is already there. So it must not be like, if it's already a part of it, the whole thing, then it can't be ejected from it. Like it can't be.
And the mind is the self, showing up as subtle forms of thought. So even that, it can't be rejected. You can show up as a form like that body, or a subtle form like a thought, or you can show up as formlessness.
Well, and there's like, that's what I meant before about being the victim. Like there's this sense of seeing that I'm playing the game, like by the hindsight view that I'm in the game very frequently. And so the question is like, do I really want freedom more than I want the world? Do I really want?
You wouldn't be here having this conversation with me if you didn't deeply. It's just mind playing now, saying, okay, you've got to get rid of that old way of seeing and being to bring in the new one. But the self isn't seeing it like that, is it? The self is just here. You're just here. Occasionally attention goes to thoughts and you buy those thoughts and you have that experience, and then attention comes back to the formlessness. And then it'll go back to the thoughts at some point, and then it'll come back. Totally. And that's just going on for the rest of your life. But it slows down the less you kind of try to push against when it goes back to thoughts.
So
because
it's
very pushing against is emphasizing that there's two versions of you, I'm choosing this one, I don't want this one. There's the original duality right there.
Well, so, and I would have articulated this recently, I have seen that believing to be a person or believing to be separate is also part of my freedom. So like, would that be what you're talking about? Sort of like dropping, because what you just said is you're saying that like the identification with thought being bad is what perpetuates the duality.
Yeah.
That it's not.
What if you forgot
Yeah.
self and ego as words? What if you just didn't know what they mean? What if you forgot union and separation, or form and formless? If you lost those out of your vocabulary now, and you just didn't know which version of you was better, you just didn't have any clue, you'd be peaceful, wouldn't you, straight away?
Yeah, I'm definitely more peaceful right now already.
Form and formless are ultimately one. You can't reject either of them without feeling divided and suffering. You see.
So, okay. So, I mean, that kind of makes, it's kind of, I mean, I wanted to ask you, like, what would you recommend to do? But
sit on the fence. Sit on the fence now. Don't try to even choose formlessness. Wherever your attention goes, let it go.
Okay. It's such a relief.
Yeah, it's hard work, that, and you can't ever get it done because your attention is going to wander back to thoughts, and there's nothing you can do about that. And when you stop trying to do something like that, about that, then you're actually being the formlessness. It's not policing at all where the attention is. That's necessary at first, isn't it, to get you to recognize that there is this greater aspect to you. But later it becomes the actual issue in itself. We have to drop doing anything in that way, spiritually. Naturally, then attention comes to rest as the formlessness, in the formlessness, much more organically, and as it becomes a habit then, and it's just happening effortlessly.
But so that's a natural process that comes as a result of like dropping the resistance, sort of letting it be.
Yeah. It seems to be there's two and you've got to pick one, but if you just don't do that, if you step back from that now,
yeah,
even though you want the formlessness, the moment you reach for it, you're rejecting the other, and you've got to feel divided then into two. But if these options are both the same one, you can't really pick anyway. They'll always appear different to the mind. Do I see myself as a separate being, or do I see myself as a formlessness? You know, of course I want this one, I don't want this one. But that's that very sentence that the mind says is stating that they're two. And you can't really keep doing that without feeling divided then. It's a sneaky one, because what you've done to get to this point now no longer works.
Yeah.
Choosing formlessness.
Okay. No, it's really wonderful. Like, that's just what you just said to me is so, it's like a very big confirmation of this. Like, I can just relax.
Yeah,
like,
just chill out, watch some Netflix, have a laugh.
Yeah.
You'll feel great, you know.
Can I ask you one more small question?
Yeah, a quick one, yeah.
Yeah, really quick. So, okay, well, so then the sense of like, unworthiness you were talking about before is another one of those many things which contemplation can work on.
Absolutely.
So that's the question you were saying to hold on to the previous person.
Yeah.
Is it really
so
true?
if I hold on to that question until I feel completely different sitting in a room with other beings, then it's done its work. I don't just want an answer here or even here, although those are great. I want it to be my experience. That's the end point of contemplation, where I'm living as that. You know?
And so do you do that in one shot? Like, when it comes up and you're like, and you question it, do you stay with it till it goes down? Or is it just whenever it arises to question it?
Whenever it arises, question it, and then bring it back to the silence or the peace or the emptiness. Past the thought answers, deeper into the emotional answers, and then into the experiential answer of peace. Each time it comes up, keep doing that, and it will come up a few times just to see if you're really serious about it, you know, and then you just keep applying the question, is that really true, with an open curiosity, most important.
So wonderful. Thank you so much, Helen, really. Thank you.
Lovely. Good conversation. Nice to meet you too.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, do we have any questions in the room? Nope. Okay, we'll go to Daisy.
Hi, Helen.
Hi, Daisy. How are you doing?
Good. I do have a lot of troubles talking in front of people, but I was just right now asking that question. Are there other people here? No.
I wouldn't be able to sit here and do this if I thought there were other beings in this room, I promise you now. So I'm right there with you.
But I really want to talk about yesterday's satsang at Awakening Together.
Mhm.
You were so passionate about the topic
little
yesterday. What does it mean? There is no separate self. What does it mean? There are no two. There is no the divine in me.
Mhm.
And I tried to raise my hand. I wanted so bad to raise my hand, but I think the configuration at Awakening Together is different in the computer here. I was looking and looking, I couldn't find it. And I just wanted to tell you, I hear you, I hear you. I hear, and I know what you're saying now. If there is no two, then everything, this sense of I, this sense that I exist, I'm here, and everything else, then it must be the self.
Yeah.
The only reality.
When I say I might have thought that was something else, but really what I mean when I say I is the self, already, right now, immediately, that has an effect, doesn't it? When you get that, it really has an effect.
Yeah, I was so happy, and you were so passionate, and you're like, I hope you guys get this. And I'm looking, where do I raise my hand?
Yeah. Can't find the button. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was so happy. I had to raise my hand since I couldn't, so I'm raising today. And I just really needed to let you know that, like, wow, but it's almost like, duh.
I mean, when I recognized
Right?
this, it was like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. And then, oh my goodness, that's really embarrassing. I've made such a drama out of my awakening. I've made it so, and of course that had to be how it was, but it was also, it's always been this way. That kind of sank in afterwards.
I know. It's like the first time that it made sense. So everything, it is the self, is the one reality.
What problems remain then for you?
I
what
know,
else do you
I'm
have to do?
Okay, what am I going to search now?
But then it moves then from this frantic trying to get somewhere to enjoying life. I'm appearing as this human being, but I am the infinite being. What's it like to play with this body, to move around through my life, to drive this body around, knowing what I really am and what everything is? What's that like? There's a curious, what's that like now? From the recognition that everybody is already the perfect self, even if they're convinced that they're not.
Yeah.
I know what they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought a little bit about it later, and I think that what I can do, the only thing that I can do is to be here, is to be in this moment.
Yeah.
And not think of future, not, because the mind was already thinking, what would you ask her to compliment this?
Now, right?
There is no compliment, there is no answer. Here the mind is trying to find something to chew on.
Even freer than that is wherever I go, if I spend 10 minutes thinking about the future, that's what I'm doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter. Nothing's happening really, is it? If I go back to an old memory, I can still see that nothing has actually occurred to me at all. Even if mine's doing what it does, I don't have to do anything about that from here. It's just this, okay, mine's doing its thing.
This is what it's happening right in this moment. And
if you notice, whenever you have a realization or an epiphany, mind immediately gets its notebook out. All right, how are we going to use this? What are we going to, how am I going to put this to work?
Yeah, but that's exactly what mind is, right? This movement towards something that is not here.
Anywhere but
It's
now.
something. Yeah.
Anywhere but now.
That's right.
You
That's
know,
right.
anytime but now, and anywhere but here. So I should say. And it's fine, isn't it? It doesn't affect you when you see that.
Yeah.
It's just doing what it does.
Mhm.
In an
Yeah.
attempt to get a grip of an understanding of the infinite being that you are. And it's never going to manage that, but it's fine. You don't have to kind of do anything about it.
Mhm. Well, thank you for your passion yesterday.
Good. Lovely.
It was really amazing.
I think I got a few of you. I'm hearing I got a few of you last night, so it's all good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank
Good
you so
stuff.
much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to Patty. Is that a hand up? Yeah, we'll come to you after Patty then. Yeah.
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
Wow. You asked, I'm having trouble finding words. You read my question on the GP Q&A, and the recommendation was to do the statement process for 30 days about thoughts of my body.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And the next morning, I sat to do a statement process, and I couldn't find, or there wasn't any negative thoughts. And then something just was being shown to me. I was seeing that I actually love this body. And I thought, well, so much for 30 days. 30 days.
Do it for 30 days anyway. Word to the wise, right? Been there, done that.
Yeah. And then a question came up. Is it true that I hate this body? And then it went even deeper. Is it true that I am the believer of the thought that I hate this body?
There you go. That's wonderful.
And I can't find the believer.
Because if you're the believer, you've got to unbelieve somehow.
Right.
And that's
right.
impossible. We keep trying, but it's impossible.
Yeah, like it's just not there. And I said, well, the believer is a thought.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find the thought. And so I've started thinking, like, is there a doer then? So now it seems that all the the activities and happenings, the occurrings, have been turned into nouns, like identities, like a gardener, a talker, a thinker. And this is there's excitement present, and there seems to be somebody that's excited, and there seems to be somebody that's relieved, but it's like, but there's relief present. And so that's what's been happening since yesterday, and it's getting very strong today. And
wonderful.
So I just wanted to tell you how grateful I am. Like, oh my goodness.
You see, it's not even anything to do with the body, right?
No,
nothing at all to do with the body. It's about this core idea, which I'm really glad that you're seeing, that whatever's going on in mind, you can probably get a sense that if I buy this idea that I am this body, then I also am everything that's going on in this body, including everything going on up here between my ears. And I have to sort it all out then. And, you know.
It's a lot of work.
It's endless, yeah. Much easier to just unsubscribe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. Yes.
Lovely. Thank you. And good to hear. Do it for 30 days anyway. See where it takes you from where you are now, and build on that momentum. You'd be so excited you won't be able to sleep at night, you'll just be buzzing. Lovely. Thank you. So we'll come to Nasheen in a minute. We've just got one in the room. Thank you for waiting. Is he busy tonight? You're making me work hard.
Mm-hmm. Kind of two things really. Have you ever experienced chronic pain or long-term illness?
Yes.
And where would you say self-inquiry goes with that? What was your experience of it all?
It's my experience has been that any diminishment of my being at all, so whether it's in my body, whether it's in my relationships, whether it's in my finances, my career, anything at all, where it's not the way I would like it to be. And obviously that's in a very chronic way when there's a lot of pain or a severe illness, is showing me that I'm still believing some idea that I haven't quite recognized yet, and therefore questioned, as we've been talking about tonight in contemplation. So for me, there was a process of accepting as best I could. It doesn't mean liking the pain, and looking for what, just asking gently what that was trying to tell me. And it happened for me at a time when life was giving me a few nudges that I was too independent myself. Wouldn't accept help from other beings, and that is fine, but it does emphasize my sense of being a separate being. You know, I'm here and I don't need help from others. So this kind of inquiry, what is this pain trying to tell me, began to bring this idea to light. And as I began to question that idea, then began to transcend it, eventually realized there aren't any other beings. I can't do it myself or accept help, just in this example. It doesn't mean that I didn't have to go through the medical procedure with the pain, and I did. I also ended up having physiotherapy, and it led to a whole insight into how my posture was. It might not be the best now, but it's better than it was. And so there's a whole process physically. Also, it wasn't one or the other in dealing with the pain, and it eventually resolved itself. But I wasn't suffering in that after I've seen the idea that it's like our body has to tell us that there's something that we haven't yet seen that we believe to be true. But this idea is such low frequency now that it jams up the system. Life force is trying to flow, and it's flowing faster and faster as we've seen clearer and clearer what we really are. And this very low vibration idea is very much in resistance to the fast flowing. Like if you had a really fast flowing river and you put a big concrete slab in it, it would just smash up against it. That's kind of what's happening in the body, where pain comes from.
So are you saying then that you're looking for the sort of hidden idea behind the pain?
Yeah.
And
that the pain is a reflection of, because we would have been experiencing on an emotional level, but we learned to ignore our emotions or push them away. So we don't deal with it on that level. Our body then has to give us a more immediate sign in that. And Louise Hay's work is really good for getting to the idea behind it, which we can then use a contemplative process on.
I've looked at that. So what you're saying then is, in a sense, that you might be I've been avoiding emotional issues, and it's coming out physically.
Yeah, for me, it went back to anger, as we're talking about with Steve. There was I just seemed to come into this lifetime with rage or something, you know, for no particular reason, that would go off like a firework every now and again, you know, in traffic or whatever. And the whole theme of my life was fear and anger. And I just hadn't been able to recognize that and deal with it, look at the story behind anger. Not at all as a separate being, because it seemed very true. I can't get what I want. I kept experiencing it over and over again. And only really after recognizing I'm not that separate being could I actually go back and look at this emotion, and then the belief behind it, the idea behind it. But
sounds like quite a process then.
It has been a process, but it wasn't a suffering process, even though there's physical pain there. The moment we are open, what is this trying to show me? Then we're not resisting the pain. It's easy to resist what is. We're so good at resisting what is. And when physical pain happens in the body, we immediately push against it. And that's natural for it. We don't want it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But recognizing that part of us that also says yes to this. Don't like it, but I can love it. I can accept it because it's trying to show me something that I haven't been able to see on the emotional level. So first it happens in thoughts, and then it's happening on an emotional level. And then if we don't see it there, it will manifest in an issue in my finances or in my body or some other way.
I think that, you know, here, everything's out in the open, everything's appearing, disappearing. It's quite clear. There's no struggle with most anything really. It's just thoughts come, thoughts go. They're bad, they're good, they're horrid, whatever. Emotions come, they go, they're bad, they're good, they're horrid. But with this long-term illness, I don't seem to be able to find the hidden, what you're talking about in it, that hidden.
There it is right there. You've just said it. I can't get what I want, which is to find. I can't get beyond this illness. I can't get to the core of it. Can you hear the?
But I'm only saying that because you've sort of described that as a process. I'm not looking for anything.
Yeah.
There's no looking for why or how. There's just pain.
Just to sit with that as much as you can. What you could sit for 10 years from the mind's level, not get an answer. You could sit for 10 seconds in open curiosity. What is this actually about? What is my body trying to show me? It's easy to kind of blame the body or go into some negative stance around it when we're in pain, and that's totally understandable. But what is this actually about? Is there something I need to see from this? And just making some space for that to reveal something to you.
And would you say that'd be the same if it was quite a deep trauma or a hidden trauma, that eventually you could, through that process, find what that
because
hidden,
the only reason it hasn't come up
hidden,
is because we haven't wanted to see it on some level. You know, we haven't, we've all got things inside us that we don't want to see because we believe that by seeing them, it's going to be really painful. But we're experiencing that pain anyway, either emotionally or physically or both. Or some kind of, you know, body illness. So looking at it is only going to help, rather than this belief idea that if I really feel my emotions, it's going to be awful, you know. So we've all got that kind of idea inside. If I really dive into what this is about, it's going to get worse, is the idea most of us have. So we're kind
my
of
experience
unwilling
with
to
awakening has been more energetic than working with the mind, because kind of seeing the whole mind is like just almost like a computer program that's just been put in. It's just concept after concept after concept.
Those concepts, all of that extraneous thought is born from the energies that we're holding on to inside, based on the deep rooted beliefs. I'm not safe, I'm not good enough, I can't get what I want. So mind will do its thing anyway until we've sort of investigated these deeper ideas.
But all that I'm not safe, I can't get what I want, these are all just conceptual ideas of something that I'm not.
Yeah, that's true. But also, you know, I'm not my mind, I'm not my egoic sense of self, but I have to admit that some part of me still believes this because my body is showing me.
Right.
You see, so dissolving the ego then is, I'm not my egoic sense of self, I've seen that, I'm not only that, but it is still believing, it is still tangled up, and therefore the life force isn't flowing through the body. So I can question these ideas knowing I'm not that anyway, just to really questioning, is this true, is the exact opposite of believing it is, you know. So it begins to undo the energies that are all sort of knotted up inside.
The only clash I would have with that is that life is life, whatever it is. There isn't good or bad, right or wrong, only conceptually.
You can tell me that, but if some part of your life isn't flowing, then some part of you is still believing in something, and that needs to be investigated.
Well, this is what I'm questioning, because is it that, or is it just that some people get cancer? I'm not saying I've got cancer, by the way, but a cancer or a broken leg, and do they have to investigate if they get, do they have to do self-inquiry because they've got a broken leg?
I mean, eventually the body has to end from something.
Yeah.
But if it's not time for the body to end, then it's not It's actually something that's coming from a belief rather than anything else. That's the only illness is a reflection of something we're holding on to always.
So just finally then, illness is something that you're holding on to.
A reflection of something.
And how would you know? Because it's not going to make the illness go away.
It might do.
Well,
might do.
doing self-inquiry is not going to heal a broken leg, is it? Or an amputation, or...
Try it and see. I'm not saying an amputation because that's something that's happened, but in terms of chronic pain and illness, the natural state of a human being is abundance, vitality, well-being, health, energy, anything that we would want.
But sorry to go on about this, but wouldn't that exclude any illness from life, which life being every form that it is? Wouldn't that be exclusive?
It doesn't
and
have
life
to show up in those low vibrations. It only has to show up in those low vibrations. It's not actual illness, it's the absence of well-being that's showing up because the life force is blocked by an idea. So it's much less likely to show up that way as you begin to inquire more, because in that openness of inquiry, you're not believing any thoughts in that moment, and the life force flows unimpeded, and you get the best version of the body that's possible in that moment then.
So finally then, you're saying if everyone had done self-inquiry and become aware of what they are, there wouldn't be any illness?
I'm saying that if you do self-inquiry and you question the beliefs, you can live the best version of your body that's possible. Okay, you're not suddenly going to grow back a amputated limb, but you'll experience a different sense of well-being in the body as the body.
Even if it's ill, even if the body is ill or not. So there would still be illness.
Most times it will clear right up and go. If it doesn't, it's usually because there's something else to see from it. But our natural state, that when the body is not showing us which thoughts we're believing, it's unimpeded life force, that's wellness, well-being. Yeah.
That's really good. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank you. And last but not least is Nafsheen. Hope I'm pronouncing that right, sorry.
Yes, Helen, thank you so much for pronouncing my name correctly.
Yeah. Thanks for waiting so long, sorry.
No, of course, no problem. So, you know, in reflection of what everyone is saying with, you know, not the person before, but the one before that, I come from a place where I've really, really struggled with my body image. As a child, I went through many years of molestation, and my weight started to, you know, rise at that time. And at the highest, I was about 350 pounds. I have lost about 120, but I still carry this weight of 100 pounds that I have tried every possible thing in the physical world with diet and exercise and restriction and going to a food addicts in recovery group. And as I'm really connected to my spiritual self now, like I know that this is just the body, and I'm not the body. I started losing weight because I hated myself. Now I'm doing it because I feel like my soul deserves to live in a healthy space. And who I am on the inside is not reflected in who I am on the outside. And I feel like it's hindering me from being free. Yet I'm doing everything possibly I can. And the harder I try, the harder it is. In fact, sometimes like in the last month, I've like restricted my diet. I started with a new trainer and I seem to be gaining weight. So I don't know. I feel like there's this block between me and my body, and I don't know how to release it. And I want to embrace the journey or the path of least resistance to lose the weight, but I don't know how to align with that path.
Okay. So a couple of things really jump out at me in what you said. And the first is, if we look at, you know, as we're just saying, our body, our life, our finances, relationships are showing us what ideas we're really holding on to. Sometimes those ideas we're holding on to because they seem very true. So if you could tell me in just 3 or 4 words how you feel about the whole process of losing weight now, you'd probably, and I might be putting words in your mouth, but just for sake of explanation, disempowered, frustrated, disappointed, despondent. We could, so.
And extremely hard.
Yeah, like it's impossible. It's impossible. So can you hear this idea talking that I can't get what I want? I can't get what I want. And it's not saying it in such a way, but this thing that I really want just won't seem to happen. We feel very justified in holding on to that idea. And I've been there with weight loss myself, so I get it. Nothing I do actually works. And even I do the right things and I put weight on, even the same things that everyone else does, and they lose it.
Exactly.
So there's this deep sense of feeling very disempowered, unable to do anything about this really that's effective. Yeah.
And I feel like it's a little bit of a contradiction to who I am, because I'm empowered in all other ways in my life except this one.
That's why this one's hanging on this area, you see, because it's now this idea that you can be disempowered, powerless even, is so out of alignment with what you've seen yourself to be, that it's now showing, hey, look at me. So recognizing that our body cannot be any other way than how we're feeling about it. It's reflecting back to us how we feel about the situation. And here there's a real sense that I just can't do anything about this. And you've noticed that that's showing up in and as your experience over and over again. So using the contemplative process here, is this really true that I'm powerless? Even though you're having that experience right now with the body, recognizing the body's got to reflect how you feel in any moment. So as you begin to question, is it true that I can't get what I want here, that I can't get past this? It's going to start to turn around. Until you've really questioned this, you don't necessarily need to do anything differently in your diet or your exercise or anything. You've got to get the energy field right first, and then the same actions will have much more effect. Yeah. So if you really want something and you feel totally disempowered to get it, it can never come into manifestation. Because that dominant feeling is this, I want it, but it's never going to happen. I just can't do it. And
that's exactly how I feel. Yeah.
It's probably played in every other area.
Yeah,
I feel on here.
Yeah, I feel like I've been trying so long and it's not getting there. So that's why I feel like it's impossible.
Yeah. So is it really true that it's impossible? See, we could feel justified in holding on to this idea because we've had an experience of it. We've lived this idea so many times. But the only way out of that cycle of belief and experience is to question if it's true, actually. Even though nothing's changed in my outside world or my body, I'm going to still question right now. And then you begin to feel better emotionally, more open. And then you're doing everything that you're doing, going to the gym or changing it, whatever you're doing, from a very different energy field, an openness and inquiry. And at the same time, you can begin to work on loving the body, understanding that it can only show you, reflect back to you how you feel. So as you begin to feel better emotionally, more empowered, right? Then you're going to see that reflecting in your body. It might be the exact same things you're doing now, but anything you're doing now from this place of it's never going to happen, you have to keep getting that experience. Cycle just goes around and around.
Yeah. So that's and whenever I have those thoughts, I tell myself that this is why you're still stuck. But then I don't know how to change the thoughts and be like, stop thinking that.
On my YouTube channel, there is a core teachings playlist. One of those is contemplation. It's been actually mentioned tonight. How to work with a question and take it right back to the experiential answer. Okay. And then every time this feeling comes up, you question, is this true? Am I powerless here, actually? Because theoretically, we can know the infinite self can never be powerless. And theoretically, we know I'm not that separate being that feels disempowered, but it's not shifted energetically in that level, is it? So the question is going to take it to a deeper level.
So it's the energetic shift that I need in reference to this obstacle that I have.
When the energy's wrong, you can do all the right things and nothing works. When the energy's right, you can do all the wrong things and it'll still work. Of course, you want to look after your body. I'm not saying, eat pizza every night and
Right.
stuff, but you
Right.
get the idea of what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that from experience. Some people can eat anything and they're really slim. Some
Mm-hmm.
people live on salad and water and they never lose weight because of the energy field inside that's most important.
Okay, I will work on that. Thank you. So it's a video called Contemplation on your playlist.
And the core teachings playlist, yeah, it'll show you just how to work with a question. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Okay, lovely. So we will leave it there for today. Thank you very much for your questions. Namaste.
Next.
Thank you, Helen. So beautiful.